The reasons why I have this conversation is because like currently I'm going through a lot of change. Change comes for us all, but I think adapting to that change has been difficult for me. And one of the ways that I've kind of done that is through your advice and your just being there for me, which is super helpful. But yeah, I wanted to get on here to talk about that, so I think other people out there can relate to when they're going through change, how to view it, how to do stuff like that. So one of the first questions I had on here was like, what's one decision, if you think back to where I think change always starts from, is us making a decision in our life, and then from there we kind of like take that and then we kind of ride that wave. So from that perspective, what's one decision that you made early on in your life that at the time you didn't understand the impact it would have, and how has that kind of changed for you?
Yeah. So it's really interesting you said that, because I'm thinking back to when I'm 16 and I'm, in school, in high school, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do with my life? Like, what bachelor's degree am I going to do? And to be honest, I was clueless. Like, the internet was there, but I just, didn't know, like, compared to obviously the generation today, I feel like they have more resources to know what they want to do very early in life, but I think I was a bit naive back then. So one of the things that I kind of decided was to do my degree in psychology. The only reason I said that that's a bit of a weird one is because that's kind of what led me to where I am today. Yeah.
Let's start there. Like, why did you decide to do psychology?
To be very honest, I did it for probably the most desperate decisions. Like, I did not know what I was going to do with my life. I was 17 and...
That's all of us, to be fair.
Yeah. And I just needed to pick a degree, and I had to pick psychology because I felt like growing up I was quite an emotional person. I always found it very interesting to look at how the human brain works and study that a lot further. Bio was actually my favorite subject back when I was at school. So I thought doing psychology would let me not just learn about the human body, but even learn about myself on a bigger level. So I think that's actually one of the decisions that is kind of like brought me to where I am today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's stay there then. I think that's an interesting perspective to go for. So psychology, let's start there. You said you made the decision because you thought it would help you understand more of yourself, and I think I had the same realization too. So I did psychology in A levels, so that's like when I was like 17 kind of age, because I had the same thing. I was like, if I could understand other people, then maybe I can understand myself, and like psychology would help. When I got into psychology, I realized a lot of it was about like, especially the one that I did, was about learning about studies and like brain and all this stuff. It was not really about like therapy and like all of that stuff there. So what was your experience like in psychology? And also talk a little bit about that. Was it like in Indonesia and Jakarta, and like what was that experience like for you?
Yeah. So I actually did my bachelor's degree in Singapore. I went to a university called Singapore Institute of Management, and going into this degree, obviously, I did not know what I was expecting because I learned a million different modules. Like at uni, we have 3 years to study something. So I did like biopsychology, I did abnormal psychology, I did clinical psychology, and genuinely at the end of the degree, I thought I was going to go into the counselor clinical psychology route. But obviously right now I work in market research. Like we work together, and there's an element of that is psychology because that's consumer psychology. But why I want to say that this kind of impacted where I am today is because I'm just wondering, have I made the right decision? There are it's not like it's human nature to obviously compare ourselves to other people, but is this actually what I really wanted to do, or is this something I did because I was just clueless when I was younger? Mm-hmm. Obviously right now I look at other people who are lawyers, doctors, and everything, and I'm like, I don't think what I'm doing is as reputable or as useful as other people. So yeah, it just brings me to a lot of thinking. But sorry, to clarify, I actually studied in Singapore. Yeah. So I did my bachelor's degree in Singapore. So I actually lived in Indonesia for 18 years of my life, and then went to uni in Singapore, and that was kind of the first time I left my little cocoon and my little home, and yeah. Yeah.
What was it like studying psychology? Thank you for doing it, but you don't have to do that.
Okay, cool.
What was it like kind of studying psychology? Was it like what you expected, or was it a bit different from what you thought it would be?
It was a bit different, to be honest, because I did learn a lot about psychiatric disorders, mental illnesses, and I think it's a very complex subject that you don't really realize how much you learn about these things, but that also kind of helped you realize a lot of things about other people and what you're going through. Because you find a lot of times you find yourself like internalizing some of the things. Like, for example, you learn about this thing called generalized anxiety disorder. It's just this like fancy term in a textbook. But then on a day to day, I'm just thinking like, I'm so anxious. Like I have palpitations. I have, just kind of going through stuff, and oh my God, I probably have GAD. So that's kind of like what psychology did to me in like a personal aspect, because I feel like you start also the flip side of it is you start internalizing what you might have, and that kind of freaks you out a little bit. Yeah.
Did it give you any, because like I've got that too, because like for me, right, when I learned it in A levels, it really helped me, kind of like you said, internalize some of the things I was going through. Maybe I kind of like misdiagnosed myself a lot of times.
No way. What did you do? Like, what kind of diagnosis?
So it would be funny because it would be like, because I'd be like, okay, cool. Because I remember learning about Freud and like dreams and like all this stuff and like, the Freudian theories and like the mother Oedipus theory and all these things. I was like, that's not me. But like a lot of his talk about dreams and like how we kind of like take our experiences and how that affects us as we grow older and stuff like that. I started to look at that as like, okay, that's the truth. And I think a lot of the parts, because I think going into it, I wanted to understand other people from a perspective of how do I relate to other people. And I think I used psychology as a way to do it. But because I didn't really like care much about the subject, I kind of stopped, like I didn't like carry on doing it afterwards. And I think I learned it very, very little. And so from that perspective, for me, psychology was always an interesting subject. But I wanted to kind of look at it from the perspective of like, how do I use what I've learned in psychology to better my life? But I didn't really do that because in the end, I didn't see what the studies they had in that as like relatable to me.
Actually, to add on that, I thought I wanted to use it to better other people's life. But I remember I was doing an internship in this like counseling place, and I was kind of looking at all these like drug addicts and schizophrenics and alcoholics. And I remember coming home from that internship every single day thinking, oh my God, I can't do this for a living. I actually can't. Like I'm going home, I'm carrying baggage, I'm carrying so much, I feel so much compassion fatigue. That's actually what I did my dissertation on. But yeah, I just kind of brought home a lot of these people's stuff. And that's when I realized, okay, I think I'm going to try to use psychology in a more corporate way. And that's basically where I am today.
I'm interested in what is compassion fatigue? What is that?
Compassion fatigue is essentially this thing where it's not just a psychology thing for people who work obviously in the mental health sphere, but it also works in nurses go through compassion fatigue because they take care of patients. For example, any service providing industry will go through compassion fatigue because you're just kind of listening to people's kind of complaints in life and their problems in life. And doctors go through compassion fatigue because everyone comes in and they're just ill all the time, and they just go home and they're just like, I'm so tired of taking care of people. Like that's literally all I do. Like when is the time to take care of myself? So compassion fatigue is when you kind of go home and, like I said, you internalize all of these things and you just feel tired, and this actually affects how you end up running your day-to-day life. So some people, the person I spoke to, so I was working with a charity when I was in my undergrad, in my master's degree just in London recently over here. I work with a charity called The Mix, and they essentially used to tell me that they used to feel like a lack of sleep. They used to feel like physical symptoms like tiredness. They used to stop eating. Like you never realize that when you're taking stuff from people, you actually also kind of affect your own health on behalf of it. And I thought that was crazy.
How did you deal with that? How did you did you just get out of it, or did you just think like I can find a way around it? How did you deal with it?
So a lot of people, obviously, not everyone has the privilege to just switch routes, switch careers the same way I did. But I already knew instantly, like, this is not what I signed up for. And I'm just going into corporate like every other person, and just using my psychology not to better other people, but using it to kind of better other companies, better other products, help businesses make money, help businesses kind of sell. Yeah.
I think that's fascinating. So, to come back to the question, the reason why I asked the question, sorry to take that tangent, but I just thought it was interesting. But yeah, the reason I actually asked the question because I feel like, for me especially right now, right, I'm starting to feel much of the pressure of the decisions to make early on. So, a little bit of backstory about me. It's like when I was in high school, not high school, when I was in uni, I chose business. So business was the degree that I did because I wasn't ready for the creative route, and I didn't want to move straight into the creative, so I did business. And so I did business for a couple of years, and I definitely feel the effects of that decision and how the life path it led me on, because it meant that the degree that I had and the experience that I had growing up was in business. And I'm reaching a stage in my life where I'm becoming more confident and more able to follow down my creative route, and I'm kind of feeling myself like, okay, cool, I have to learn how to adapt. And learning to adapt between that, you know, and going, okay, I now have the confidence to do more creative stuff and poetry and stuff like that, and I have to change. But that decision I made when I was 18 years old, when I wasn't sure about my life and I wasn't sure about what I wanted to go with my life, that's still having ramifications right now. And I know right now I'm in a position in my life where I feel like that's happening again, where now I'm in that kind of crossroad where I can keep going down the creative route, I can keep going down the corporate route, I can keep going down that route, and making that decision again, whatever path I choose to take, that will affect me later on. And so I know that I'm not the only one in that position, and I just think it's so interesting that we face that pressure.
But I was going to say, like, change is the only constant. I feel like so much change has happened in my life. So I told you, 18 years, I grew up in Jakarta, Indonesia, and then I moved to Singapore for my undergrad. I worked there for a bit, and then I've had to kind of, because of COVID, obviously, that affected all of us. That led me to have to go back home to Indonesia. And I was bored in Indonesia, and then I wanted to go to somewhere else. So I kind of followed my brother to the United Kingdom, and I know, and now I'm in the UK. And it's crazy because now I'm going back to Indonesia again. So I feel like change is the only constant, but also adaptability is a very important skill to have, because that's, I think, the only thing, like, that's like people skills, that's also emotional intelligence. Like, these are kind of this is actually what makes us the essence of a human, right? Being able to be adaptable. Like, it's not always about, you know, tangible things, but it's not always about materialistic things. It's about also having that intelligence to be able to go through change.
How do you know, you can...
Yeah.
How do you deal with that change then? If it comes to, like, when it comes to making that decision, when it comes to making that choice, you know it's like a pivotal moment for you, for example, for you to go back.
Yeah.
You know, how do you go through that process of thinking about it?
This is so interesting because copyright, this is not me. This is actually something I don't want to say something that I didn't come up with, but this has really helped me. I just feel like I have to say it. Shout out to my friend who obviously introduced this to me. But it's not just a pros cons list. I think a pros cons list would work, but I think it's very important to give weightage to your pros and to your cons. So, for example, some of the pros, just to give you an example of how I ended up doing this, was London pros, like lifestyle, and you have a job, and your managers are really great, and blah, blah, blah. And then the cons of, for example, London is like you're lonely, you're all by yourself, your family's back home. And then for Jakarta, the country I'm moving back to, the pros is like obviously my family, blah, 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 making more money, saving more. And the cons of living back there is like a lack of independence. So what I do with that pros cons list is I'm just not counting the number of pros and the number of cons. I'm actually doing a weighting. So how important is lifestyle in London? I give that a weight of +3 to -3. So yeah, lifestyle is quite important in London, so I'd give that a +3. And then, for example, how important is independence in Jakarta? I would give that like a 0, because it doesn't really matter. I'm independent. I can make my life the way I want to there as well. So I did that for every single thing on my pros cons list, and I actually gave it a weighted sum. And this is a bit funny, but I just gave it a weighted sum, and the score of whichever that was higher or lower was kind of how I actually ended up making my decision to move back home, because Jakarta scores are much higher than London scores.
And then once you made that decision, when it comes to actually actioning that decision, you know, because like obviously you make a decision in your head and then you have to do it, and then the feelings that come after making that decision, what is that like, and how do you get through that? I
mean, honestly, I'm feeling all the feels. I'm here for like another 2.5 weeks. I'm feeling all the feels. To be honest, this is not very healthy, but I'm just numb at the moment. I'm trying to focus on work, trying to focus on meeting people, having one-on-ones with people, like what we're doing now, having more of that with other people. I'm just numbing down my feelings, but this is probably very bad advice, yeah, but I probably only feel everything when I'm on my flight.
So I say this to a lot of my friends. I say compartmentalizing your emotions is an advantage if you're self-aware. So if you're self-aware that that's what you're doing, like I'm going to feel these emotions later, that's actually an advantage, because obviously sometimes you're not ready to have all those feels because you're just not in the right state of mind, you're not in the right environment. It doesn't make sense if you can't make a decision. You're just going to think about something, you can't actually do anything about it. So actually having the ability to go, you know what, I know this feeling, I know I'm going to go through, I'm going to compartmentalize it, move on, do what I have to do, and then later on I'll come back and actually like look at it properly. That's actually a skill. So I think, I do that all the time. I do that all the time about everything I go through.
Actually, I was going to say, what also really helps me make decisions like this is also making sure that you know what to expect when you are kind of in that second place that you're in. So for example, in my situation, Jakarta, that's the place that I'm moving back to, but I'm not going to sit there and feel all the feels when I'm on the flight. I might feel it for a day or two, yes, but I know that when I go back home, I have a job lined up for me. I know I have friends there. I know my partner lives there. So it's just making sure you know what to expect. And I know whatever you're going through right now as well, it's kind of hard to know what to expect, but what I also find really helpful is if you don't know what to expect, just plan as much as you can. Have a routine, things can pop up that are expected, things can pop that are unexpected, but just making sure you know what to do from a 9 to 5. And that just helps me be comfortable with change. Just, expectation, to be honest. Can lead to disappointments, but you just need to know what to expect.
I agree. I think that's true. I think that's 100% true. I think like we don't know what comes with change. We always try to plan. I'm one of those people. We try to plan every other outcome, trying to think, okay, I can like strategize everything.
I know this because honestly, like Jeffrey Sarpong, like he plans every 5 minutes of his day. He has a notes, okay? He has a notes on his phone, okay? I really need to out you out because I think this is crazy.
It's not crazy. I'm not crazy, guys. I'm totally crazy.
7:30 a.m. I'm meditating. 7:35 I'm brushing my teeth. 7:40 I'm getting to the shower. That's literally how you plan your day. So to be honest, you are literally practicing what I've just been preaching.
Yeah. Honestly, like I think it might be a form of ADHD or like autism. To be fair, like I need that structure because I think also it's like self-imposed, isn't it? So I don't have to do it, but I do it because it just gives me enough. It feels like I get the time in my life back again. But no, it's important because I feel like when you do that, sometimes like you were saying, the only thing about that that's negative is that sometimes you might be disappointed when things don't go your way. As you've seen, when things don't go my way, sometimes I'm in a mood. But most of the time, I think it helps me kind of structure my day. Yeah. But to kind of go back to that point where we're talking about change, I think a lot of the time that comes with, the things that we do and like what to expect and the differences between the two things that we want. So on that topic, actually, I know that you spoke about going back to Jakarta and the kind of going back to work there. I wanted to ask, what is the work culture like in Jakarta? What are you expecting to be there when you go back? And also thinking about how it's been here. How does that differentiate or how similar is it to London?